Welcome back, everyone, to the Awakened Woman Show. I'm Barbara.
And I'm Brianna. And today we're diving into one of those topics that can totally change the way you relate to everyone in your life, communicating boundaries.
Ooh, boundaries aren't about just shutting people out. They're about letting relationships thrive with clarity, respect, and mutual care.
And yet, for so many women, even the word boundary tends to bring up guilt or fear of conflict.
Mm.
We've been taught to say yes, even when our whole body is screaming no.
Exactly. So today, we're going to explore what healthy boundaries really look like, why they're so important for your emotional well-being, and how to express them with confidence and kindness.
We'll share some practical phrases that you can use, stories from our own experiences, and tips for handling those tricky moments when someone pushes back.
So grab something to drink, get comfy, and let's talk about how to honor your energy, your time, and your truth, one clear conversation at a time. So, Brianna, let's start by understanding what boundaries really are.
I would say that boundaries have to do with where our energy ends and begins and how to communicate that to others in a way that is respectful and loving to both ourselves and others. So, just to give an example, everybody has different size auras. I don't know why my brain is taking me here, but this is where it's taking me. Some people have larger energy with lighter boundaries. Other people might have a smaller, more compact energy field with tighter boundaries. Both of these people, this could be completely intentional. And so we might feel that because our boundaries may be perceived to be more permissive and someone else's boundaries may be perceived to be less permissive, that means that we can overstep those boundaries. But everybody has a different set of boundaries, and it essentially just means what we are okay with and not okay with, what resonates with our sovereign expression and what doesn't. And so instead of erecting walls where we're just keeping everything and everyone out, it's essentially us saying, this is where I allow this particular thing to exist, and this is where I no longer allow this particular thing to exist.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that boundaries are an act of self-respect, not selfishness.
Exactly.
And in case people didn't realize, you can have physical boundaries, that's kind of obvious, emotional boundaries, energetic, time, and digital. Like, I only have so much time I'm going to spend on social media, and then I'm done for the day.
I love the digital boundaries because there is something that I've noticed, and I feel like this is something that a lot of women are going to resonate with. And it's actually a big pet peeve of mine because I feel like there's a lot of overstepping boundaries between women and men, especially through social media, for example, where it used to be, let's say you're going out for a drink in the bar, and someone would come up to you and say, "Can I buy you a drink?" And you say, "No, thank you." And the person, kindly pisses off. And if they don't, then it's considered kind of a big deal. But on social media, people will think it's okay to just drop in your inbox and harass you or send explicit pictures or just do things that we know wouldn't be like normally like socially acceptable, but because there's that computer screen, that device, and that they can hide behind, they will cross people's boundaries without thinking a second thought. And
I'm
so I
sorry for
really love that
laughing.
digital's on there. No, it's
I was just picturing being in a bar and someone sending a live dick pic instead
but that's what it's like.
I
That's what
know.
it's like. It's so ridiculous. And so it's like that's one issue with, the digital self. People don't understand that your social media, that's your avatar. Like there's energy there, there's your imprint there, and it matters just as much to respect someone at that level and their boundaries they have than as it does in other forms, especially nowadays with what technology has. So I say all that to say that I really love that digital is something that we're talking about because I feel like it's something that isn't talked about enough. And it's very important that people have strong digital boundaries and treat it as they would physical boundaries. You know, whatever you're not going to put up with in person, you shouldn't put up with online.
So I have a story, of course. What are we at? Like 5 minutes? Yeah, it's time for a story. So way back in 2007, I took a sabbatical. This probably doesn't make any difference, but I played in Second Life for a year. And Second Life was the metaverse, was like the most current metaverse application at the time. And you could do anything in Second Life. And I had a healing clinic there, and I met with real clients there. Also, and one of my clients needed a special tool that that was oh okay, this he needed several stuff, but one thing that I was getting was that he needed to wear a chair on his back. And in Second Life, I could make a chair and I could have him attach it to his avatar's back and make it almost invisible so nobody would see it. And for some reason, this was going to help him in real life.
Okay,
But I was attaching it to his avatar, and it worked.
interesting.
It worked.
Huh. Which just proves the deep connection. You know, it's to the point where there are several cultures that don't even believe in being photographed because it leaves an energetic imprint of you on it. You know, people can access your energy that way, and it's even more prevalent when we think about it online. So anytime you're putting a picture up of yourself, you have an avatar representation that is an access point to your energy. That's why it is so important for us to have boundaries with our time and our energy in every spectrum, like every sphere of our life,
For sure.
and especially
So,
as women. Because
yeah,
I feel like as women, like we're constantly taught to be accessible, and this is something that I feel, I don't want this to get political, but has become maybe an overcorrection in some ways. But it's because it needed to happen. It was so extremely in the other, area where women, virtually had like no say or no rights. I mean, to the point where a woman can't even dress the way she wants, without being blamed for, sexual advances. So,
right.
as though she doesn't have a right to her own body and her own choices. So, I feel that women, especially, it's important for us to have very strong boundaries and not feel bad about it. I want to give an example. How many times have we been out in public and let's say it doesn't have to be a man, it could be a woman too. A complete stranger says something to us, asks us a question, gives us a compliment, whatever. Are you going to respond to that 9 out of 10 times? Do you feel like you have to respond in order to be polite or nice? Not realizing that you might be giving access to your energy to somebody that isn't deserving of it. I feel like sometimes, especially as women, we're taught to be nice and polite. And there's actually this video that I saw on YouTube where it says, mean girls actually get what they want. And what it was really talking about, not being mean or, like rude or anything like that, but not feeling as though we have to entertain each person that comes up to us, whether that's a DM on Facebook or that's somebody saying hello in person. I don't know if you've had that happen a lot. I have a lot of strangers try to come up to me and talk to me in person. And depending on the vibe, I may say hello or give a brief, polite response. But most of the time, I feel like it's them trying to access my energy, trying to get access to me in some way. And so that's just something that I feel that as a woman, I just want to say it's okay to ignore people. It's okay to not give anyone your energy or attention. You don't have to feel bad about it or feel like you've done anything wrong. And if they do say something, that is actually more proof that they feel that they have a right to your energy. And this is what a lot of women are really standing up for right now, is just we have a right to our own individual personal boundaries and we shouldn't have to defend them or, you know, push back so hard. It should just be something that's respected. But, we can do that without having walls up. It's just people will sense like our boundaries and they'll know that there's a consequence for pushing against them. That might be detachment. That might be somebody taking some sort of legal action, depending on how extreme that is. But it should never be to give in to that person and their demands if it goes against our personal boundaries, whatever those are, big or small. I don't care if it's family, friend, stranger, boss, colleague, acquaintance, client, whoever it might be.
So you're finding that oftentimes people intrude on you? Is that what I heard you saying? That they're
It's not in
crossing boundaries?
it's not intruding. It's I've learned that I don't have to entertain anybody's advances. So just like I said earlier, like if I'm like, for example, a lot of times I'll just be going to the gas station, I'll be going to a store, and people will come up and give a compliment, or they'll want to say something, or they'll want to start talking to me. I guess I just have that kind of energy where people want to come up and talk to me and engage in conversation. It's strange because on one hand, I feel like my energy intimidates people, but on the other hand, I feel like people will. And to be fair, I have been magnetizing princess treatment and things of that nature, and so there that could be part of that. But it is kind of this thing of like for example, it's usually somebody that might be like attracted to me or want something from me in some kind of way. Maybe like they want my number, or maybe they want to ask me for money, or they want me to help them in some kind of, there's like always some sort of wanting access to my energy at some level. And so what I found is like, don't feel guilty for ignoring. You just completely ignore them like they didn't say anything. And or you could just say no thank you or no and not feel bad about it. Like don't feel like you have to engage with people just to be polite. Just because they're not coming off rudely or demanding doesn't mean they're not trying to like access your energy. That's kind of what I was saying, is it's not always like a cut and dry thing. And people, not everyone deserves access to your energy, and you can kind of gauge that on a case by case basis. So we don't have to be polite just because that's the social expectation. We can completely ignore people.
I don't know. That doesn't sit right with me by completely ignoring them. I think we should be polite. If someone gives you a compliment, you can say thank you, and then that's it. Turn away and go do something else. Don't pay any attention to them.
It depends on the person. So even like there's an energy exchange and even saying thank you. So if their intention is to give a compliment, to open up the conversation and to have access to your energy. So some people, like for example, like if I'm walking through the store and someone just, gives me a compliment, I was like, I can tell a difference between somebody just giving me a compliment and somebody trying to use it as an access point where I can feel like they're trying to access my energy. And we have to understand that our energy is valuable and we don't owe anyone anything. Um, I used to feel like I had to follow that social norm of if someone does this, I say, oh, well, thank you, and da 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 da. And if it doesn't sit well with you or certain people listening to this, that's totally fine. This is just a journey. This is a lesson that I've had to learn. And it's a very good lesson for people that are overgivers, over pleasers, tend to fawn, especially in childhood. If you grew up with a parent where you felt like you had to smooth things over or fawn them, this may be something you struggle with. And to me, it's good practice, just saying no or no thank you, and not feeling like you have to respond if something feels off. So if there's like this nice old lady that's, in the store and she's like, "Oh, I really like your shoes," or whatever, you could say thank you, or she wants you to help her out with something cool, but if there's like this creepy dude coming up to you and he's like, "Oh, I really like your earrings," like I'm probably going to ignore him. And that's just a case by case basis because I can feel that how I look at it is this is not somebody that I would entertain, but
Yeah.
he knows that. And so he's trying to use the compliment as a bridge. And even me responding to him is giving him energy at an energetic level. I'm giving him energy that he doesn't deserve, that I wouldn't give him under normal circumstances. Does that make sense?
It's making more sense. It's easier for me to see it in like online. Like I'll write some kind of very neutral post, and then some dude will go, "Oh, you're so beautiful. I've been reading your posts and they're all so wonderful. And I tried friending you, but it wouldn't work. Can you friend me?" And it's like I don't
Hmm.
respond to them at all. I
See, that's what I
delete.
mean.
Yeah.
People can do that in person too, and it can feel just as like intrusive. I had one guy come up to me in the grocery store. This is before I went carnivore. I think I was vegan. This was a few years ago, and I was picking out kale. And he came up to me, and I'm just sitting there trying to pick out kale, and he was like, "I really like your tattoo." And he got like an inch away from my chest, like, and like pointed with his finger. It's like literally like covering an inch away from my chest. And I like
Yeah.
took a step back and I was like, yeah, thanks. He was like, what does it mean? I was like, that's personal. And I said, anyway, have a good day. And I just turned around. That was then. If someone would do that now, I would probably just take a step back and I would be like, have a good day or say nothing, because it's like, that's that kind of energy. It's people just being intrusive. Now, something to keep in mind is cultural difference. So, this is something that was standing out to me when we first started the episode. So, in India, for example, it's in their culture to ask a ton of personal questions. Now, unless of course the person that is their ethnicity is maybe from India, like lives in England, then they may have a totally different cultural view of it, and they may have like kind of a smaller bubble. But when I traveled to India, that was hard for me to get used to. And if I wouldn't have researched the social and cultural norms before I went there, I would have been freaked out because it was like, hey, how old are you? Like, how many siblings do you have? Where were you raised? Yeah, what do you do for a living? How much do you, and it was just like, I felt like I was being like interrogated for a job. Or like I was applying for a job or being interrogated at a police station or something. And it was just like, that's how they communicate there. That's how they get to know you. They're very warm, very personal. But to me, it felt very intrusive. So I feel like it's also important for us to take into consideration cultural differences and not take things personal. But that doesn't mean that just because we don't take something personal, that doesn't mean we can't clearly communicate boundaries. So, for example, if you are around someone and they're from a different culture, instead of getting offended or freaking out, you might say, I'm not really comfortable answering those questions. Or just say, no, thank you, or, no, or whatever, or like what I said, I know it's a little more taboo, but like what I said, you can always feel free to ignore people if, you do not feel like you want to give them energy, if you feel like something's off. So I just wanted to throw that out there about the cultural thing, because I feel like that gets overlooked a lot with boundaries too. People don't think about how like someone in Mexico is gonna have a different energetic boundary than someone in the US, for example.
And speaking of cultural boundaries, it's time for story number two. Ding, 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 ding.
Yay.
When I first moved into my house, the whole subdivision was brand new, and everybody was moving in at the same time. And there were like six or seven kids all around the same age that lived on my block, and the kids all played together, and the parents would be out on the sidewalk or the driveway watching the kids. Um, and I was talking to one of my neighbors who is from South Africa, and I didn't know it at the time, but it turns out, well, I didn't know this at the time. I'll tell you at the end what the deal was. So, where I'm from, when you're talking to somebody in person and you're standing up, you're standing so close to them that you can almost smell their breath.
Oh, I can't do that. Mm-mm.
And so I was standing pretty close to her, and then she backed up. And so I took a step closer
Oh
again.
no.
We wound up doing this little dance until we'd made a huge circle around the driveway.
Oh
and
my
and,
gosh.
and at that point,
You weren't picking up on the body language, or you were just like not you weren't thinking anything of it at the time until you looked back on it later, or
I'm from I'm like from the old country where like everybody in my old country is like the same, pretty much. So it just or I'm just oblivious. I'm into my own thing, and it never occurred to me that I mean, I thought there were only five different kinds of trees in the whole world. That's how aware I was. I had no idea. Maple, oak, palm trees, and a couple others. That's it. It's like who knew that? I can't even think of another tree name. Anyway, so by the when we made this huge circle around the driveway, I realized that she had another what's it personal space. Her personal space was a lot bigger, bigger distance, whatever you call it. Hers was bigger
right.
than mine. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, it was so funny, but I swear to God, we I take a step forward, she take a step back. I take a step
Did
forward,
you
she
guys
take a
ever
step
talk about
back.
it? Like, or did she just kind of, or it was just kind of something you ended up noting later? Like, did it ever get brought up, or?
Did what? Did ever? No, it never got brought up, but it didn't have to, and I never did it again.
Cool.
It's like where I grew up, somebody comes out, they ring the doorbell, you open the door, you invite them in. Come on in,
Right.
sit down, have some cookies and some tea, and oh, you've never been here. Let me show you my whole house. Uh,
Hospitality. Yeah.
And yeah, and when I moved here, I couldn't get people to cross the threshold. They would just stand at the door. It's like I couldn't even drag. Come on in. Why aren't you coming in my house? It like I totally didn't get it. It was so foreign to me.
That is like a really good example of how being from a different, culture, different area. I mean, and even in the United States, there's just like so many, like going to the South, it's like so different than just going to, you know, um, the upper East Coast or going to like the West Coast or the Midwest. Like it's all very different and there's different cultures, different boundaries, different things that are appropriate or not appropriate. And yeah, small town versus big city, all of that. Like I could not handle Boston. Boston was way rude to me, like super rude. I imagine I would have
Hmm.
felt the same way about New York, although I haven't visited quite yet. But I imagine that within those areas, there's also a lot of different cultures of people, and it could depend vastly on the cultures of the people living there in the areas that they live and stuff. So,
Okay, should we talk about maintaining and reinforcing boundaries?
absolutely.
I think it's important to be consistent
Mhm.
because my actions teach others what's acceptable.
The more that you give of yourself and allow your boundaries to be crossed, the more that people are going to think they could take from you. But the more evident your boundaries are, and the more consistent you are with keeping up with your boundaries, the more that people will value you, the more they'll value your energy, and the more energy you will have for yourself and the people and situations and things around you that are important. That's basically the gist of it.
I'm getting the image of a lighthouse. A lighthouse does not run up and down the shoreline waving its arms, going, look at me, don't run into the rocks over here. It will completely confuse the boats if a lighthouse goes running up and down the shore. A lighthouse is consistent, it stays in one place. You know exactly where it's going to be, and that's it. That's
I
the
like that.
boundary.
That's a great metaphor, Barbara. I love that.
And that's
In fact,
it's
I'm going to have to remember that one and possibly steal it. I'll make sure to quote you, though, referencing that.
oh, and that's not from me. That's from shoot, what's the name of the book? It's from Attracting Perfect Customers.
Oh, that one. That's the one I've been wanting to check out that you told me about. That's
Yeah.
cool. Why do you think that women struggle with boundaries aside from what we've already talked about? And how do you feel that they could communicate boundaries clearly. I know I gave my view on that.
Well,
I
because I
wanted to
think
give
women
you an
don't
opportunity.
understand the concept of being a lighthouse. And I think that that women take responsibility for stuff like, oh, there's something wrong in this relationship. It's something that I'm not doing. There's something I should be
Mm-hmm.
doing better, something I should be doing different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not true. The guys are the fishermen and the hunters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They, if you keep giving more, they're not gonna get their enjoyment in fishing and hunting.
Exactly. And also, if you go in, like, let's say if we're talking about dating romantically, right? If you're single and you're going in the dating scene, you should have a very clear idea of how you are going to be treated on dates, what you're looking for the short term and long term, and not budge on it. A lot of times people get lost in that phase, and what happens is they may be, and if you want to be physically intimate, awesome, there's nothing wrong with that, but just know that when you do that, your love hormones and everything kick on and can sometimes create blind spots. If you're wanting to date somebody with the purpose of marriage, for example, or something long term and consistent, you might not want to be physically intimate with them right away, because it will sometimes cause you to overlook red flags that you might not otherwise overlook, because it totally alters your brain chemistry, like from a scientific standpoint. And so I personally feel that the more we take time to get to know people and the more we stick to whatever boundaries that we have, the more aligned of the partners we will attract. And, something simple is I'm not going to, this may be, everyone's going to have their own standard, right? But let's say, like for me, if I'm going on a date with somebody, they're going to open the door for me. They're going to open the car door for me. They're going to open the door of the restaurant for me. I'm not splitting the bill. They're not going to be on their phone 24/7. They're going to be asking me thoughtful questions. They, may even bring a little gift. It's not like they have to, but I mean, that's awesome if they do something like that. And they're there to get to know me, and they're there with the intention for serious commitment. Someone else may have a totally different view of what they're looking for. And there's nothing wrong with wanting something casual, but you should make sure that the other person is aware of that. So if you're looking for something casual, you're looking for friends with benefits, or maybe you're looking for polyamory, or maybe you're rotational dating, or whatever you're doing, make sure that you know what your personal boundaries are and don't accept something less. So, for example, if you're looking for a committed relationship and you're on the first date and the guy says, I just got out of a bad divorce, I'm not really looking for anything serious, run. Why? I know so many women that just continue dating, like, I'll change his mind. It's like, first of all, why would you want to go through that process? And second of all, he already told you what he was looking for. You just didn't pay attention. You didn't listen. So stop wasting your time and date the guy that is on the same wavelength you are. And then you won't be attracting people that take advantage of you or aren't investing in you and are breadcrumbing you.
Now we're getting into the category of self-worth, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the only reason why women would would date someone that's not quite right for them. They'd overlook the problems. Well, it's either self-worth or you've been really lonely and you're missing having physical touch. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but even the physical touch, it just boils down to self, because the physical touch is not worth it when it's the wrong person.
Exactly. It could also come down to you're used to having to prove yourself as a child to your parents, or
Hmm.
maybe your parents, didn't respect your boundaries. So now you're attracted to partners that reflect that until that's healed. So that's a big thing too. So some of us may have to reparent ourselves to respect our own boundaries in order for us to be consistent with our boundaries. That's the only way other people are going to respect our boundaries, because there's an old saying, if you give a mouse a cookie, they'll ask for a glass of milk. The more you give to people, if you don't have any sense of boundaries, they're not going to stop and think and go, oh, wait, I don't know if I should do that. More often than not, they're going to just keep taking. So we have to have that sense of like, this is where I end and this is where you begin, and be able to communicate that lovingly to ourselves and others.
It's getting more towards business. There's a woman who is like a business coach, and her thing is stop nurturing people. You're not going to make sales by nurturing people.
Mm-hmm.
This is whenever you do a lot of tips and tricks and advice for free, come to my free webinar, blah blah, that that people that doesn't create buyers. So when you're even in a social situation, if you're baking cookies and always doing what the other person wants, that's the same thing as nurturing. Don't do it. They're not going to be a buyer.
Yeah. It goes back to that other old saying of why would you buy the cow and you can get the milk for free?
Yeah.
So I think some important questions that we can ask ourselves and that the listeners can ask themselves is, where do I need clearer boundaries in my life right now? Are there areas that I could improve on this? Are there areas that maybe I'm not communicating boundaries, or I'm letting things mull over or like be like bulldozed in some kind of way? And then maybe do some journaling. Write down one boundary that you'll practice communicating to somebody this week. And then just remember that boundaries are not going to restrict or limit you, especially when it comes to like love with other people. They just define it in a way that lets you thrive as a person so that your needs are being met and you're attracting somebody that's on the same level as you. So, and it goes both ways. We also have to respect the boundaries of others. It's not just us like respecting our own boundaries, but also do the same for others. And I feel like we will tend, once we respect our own boundaries, we will tend to attract people that respect boundaries because we're not going to entertain any other people. So I do feel that that will be a mirror. So ask yourself this too. Am I surrounded by people in my life that respect my boundaries, or am I surrounded by people in my life that don't respect boundaries? Because that is a mirror. In what way are we not respecting our own boundaries or may not be respecting the boundaries of others?
The more you honor your needs and your limits, the more authentic your connections become. Because it's not about control, it's about alignment.
Mhm. So this week, practice communicating just one boundary with clarity and compassion. Notice how it feels to stand in your truth, to stand in your authenticity.
And next time, we're exploring one of the most important skills in any relationship, empowering communication. If you want relationships that feel respectful, loving, and aligned, you won't want to miss that episode.
Oh, that's going to be a good one. So we'll see you then, guys. And remember, you deserve relationships that honor you.
Thanks for listening. I'm Barbara,
And I'm Breanna.
and we are the Awakened Woman.